before the war, before World War II, before the war, he graduated from high school in 43, so he got in on the tail end of World War II. He walked into the line as a combat infantryman on January 8, 1945, southeast of Bastogne, Company C, 134th Infantry, 35th Division. But when he was in high school, especially during the first few years of World War II, they took all the farm help and drafted them. A lot of the farm help went into the service. So they got a lot of high school kids to work on the farm. So Dad has worked horses and mules on the farm. And, we got auto steer in the tractor, and he wanted to see this newfangled auto steer, so we got him up in the tractor and put him in the seat and let him, turn it around and touch the button, and the tractor took off driving, and you drop the implement and go. So he's run auto steer. And he kind of laughed and kind of said, well, we've come full circle. And I go, what do you mean? He said, well, back in, I don't know if it was 40 or 41, when he started working for Joe Wright on the farm, there was a neighbor guy that needed some help, so Dad was down there helping him on the farm. Dad was plowing corn, cultivating corn, but they used to call it plowing corn, with a pair of mules. Well, Dad turned the mules around, and they wouldn't go. They stopped. They stood there. And the mules wouldn't go. And he said, I couldn't figure it out. And finally, both mules jumped over one row. Dad had got the mules lined up on the wrong row, and the mules knew which next row they were supposed to go to. They jumped over and took off. And he said, I learned right then and there that when you were cultivating corn, just follow the mules because they knew where they were going to go. And he said, we've come full circle. Because I had auto steer back then and got auto steer now. The old mules knew which row they were supposed to be on. The young kid running the mules didn't know which row they were supposed to be on, but the mules did. And so, he kind of laughed about how the auto steers come all the way full circle because he said the two mares was a little bit different deal. You kind of had to watch the two mares because they weren't quite, but the reason they used the mules to cultivate the corn is because the mules never stepped on the corn plant when they turned on the ends. Now, the mares would slaughter the corn, that's a quote from him, as they turned on the ends, but the mules would step around the corn plants. So, heck yes, you're going to put the corn cultivator on the mules. And since they knew which road they were going on and how they were going to do it, and Dad said you didn't need a watch. Because he says at noon they'd get to the end of the row and they'd just start heading to the house. Because it was time for them to get a little water and get a little break while you ate lunch, and then you went back out to the field. And he said, you set your watch by them. He said they knew when it was noon, and when you'd hit them up that way and they'd come back, he says they'd just start heading to the house. And so he kind of talks about how we got all this fancy auto steer in these tractors, and he said, hell, we had auto steer back when we were running the mules.